Alright, so it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I forget what the date is today. I think it's the 23rd, 22nd, whatever, of November. I'm standing in front of our Quonset shed here, and we're going to talk about this 560 that was in a previous video. We're going to give a little history on it, so let's go do that. Now, to clarify before I start this video, I was not around to help with this project. This was done when I was like 6, 8 years old. So I'm going off based off what I know. If Dad wasn't cutting wood right now, I'd have him here explain it. But anywho, we're going to talk about this tractor. So this is the tractor that was shown in a previous video. Not really shown, but it appeared in a previous video. As you can see, it is a 560 diesel. We have a sort of love for these 560 diesels. It's what Dad grew up with, and I grew up on and with. So, obviously, being a 560 diesel, this tractor originally had the 282 diesel in it. But, over time, they got tired, whatever else, and Grandpa got this bright idea to put a D361 out of an 806 in there. So, we'll get this air tank out of the way here. And we can see there's clearly a D361 in this 560. And as you can tell, modifications were done. The hood is welded here. There's an added-on addition to the hood right here. I don't know what that is, like 5-6 inches. Grandpa added this on. Dad added on to the hood. Dad made it look professional. Grandpa just brazed it together. But, like I said, they did this as a cheaper alternative to overhauling a 282 that was spewing out oil. So, after they did this, before they did this, this tractor had a wide front on it. Then after they did it, they put the narrow front on it. And this became the feed mill tractor. This ran the feed mill, and oh, he loved it for the feed mill. This was basically his chore tractor. It did a lot of different things. Obviously, it's got the spin-on adapter kits, which is better than the canister because of these power steering lines in the way. It is a pain in the rear. But they made it work. They had to egg out the frame a little bit here. They had to put a different flywheel on it, I'm sure. I can't remember what else they had to do in the bell housing. Maybe that sounds like Dad's done cutting wood. Maybe I'll go get him. But they did a lot of, just a lot of tomfoolery to make this 361 fit. I don't remember what frame rails they used. If they might be the original ones, looking like they are, because they got a gap here. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But it turned out as a really good tractor. So, obviously, we don't have gold plugs no more. We got an hour meter in there. And we don't have a shutoff cable anymore either. Shutoff's integrated in the throttle like a normal 806. So, just a little history on this neat tractor. And now this is actually the first one he did. And now that first one that we just looked at, he did, I don't know how long it took. It was probably over the span of a year, whatever it was. But now we're walking out to number 2. He did 2 of them. So, at the moment, this is what is left of number 2. As we can see, this one clearly has a 361 in it. Now, this one's had issues over the years. This tractor was in worse shape than the other one. But this one had a wide front after the conversion. Originally, this one had the narrow front. I don't know why he converted them around. But anyways, this is actually the second 361 he put in here. The first one blew a hole in the side of the block when we had it on the blower. So this is the second one that was put in there. Obviously, this one was tired. This one was really tired. We called this tractor Old Smoky. It was a new pump at the time. I don't know. They don't look like injectors were new. Maybe they were. I don't know. Dad probably won't remember, but this tractor, after he got this one together, this one also did everything. He was in such a rush to use this one right away that it was never really finished. And actually, I don't remember if it was this one or if it was the other one, but one of them were locked up. There was a mouse nest that got inside one of the cylinders, and they went to go spin it over, it wouldn't spin over. So they had to clean that up. And of course, got the ether assist mounted there. And I don't remember, they must have had to do something different here to add on something with the fuel tank bracket. I honestly don't remember. But yeah, so this is, something happened with this engine. We don't know. We honestly don't know. It was before we took over the farm. It was parked when we took over. Grandpa had his assumption, Dad had his assumption. So it ended up just getting parked for a couple years, and then it ended up over here in this old concrete pad. Robbed front end parts off it, robbed the steering assist off of it. And the hoodwork and the fuel tank is all over at our house because we were going to start taking it apart and get it running again, but this tractor it's tired. It's very, very tired. These 560s showed up to this farm wore out, and Grandpa got them going good enough to use them and used the living piss out of them. Like, as you can see, he added these flat top fenders his own sort of way, but he did this because, well, I think he did it for the kids and whatnot, my dad, my uncle, and whoever else, so they could all ride on the fenders, and I think they look nicer than that way. But yeah, as we can see, steering wheel's been welded together. This one's been sitting out here for a while, so things are really stiff in this one. But this one's got a meter of some sort, amp meter down there. But these tractors had the piss beat out of them. And these handles were actually put here for me to hold on to when I was a kid. But anyways, yeah, just a quick little backstory on these 560 806s. So one of them still lives on. Alright, so we're going to do a part 2 to this video. This time we got Father here to kind of explain what they had to do to this tractor back in the day to make it what it is. So if you want to start, have at her.
So originally I had a 282 in it, which I don't remember what happened to this one. It probably blew a hole in the side of the block or something. So my dad at the time wanted to repower it, and so he found a D361. He says, we're going to try to make it fit. I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? So where there's a will, there's a way. We had to switch frame rails to make this work. The front bolster is the same 560 bolster, but we had to space it, and actually we didn't have to space it, we had to move it forward to make it fit because the engine's so long that it affected the steering. So then he made some extra steering parts for it. We had to re-engineer the flywheel on it so we could use a 560 flywheel that bolted to the 361 crankshaft. In order to do that, we had to have the back of the mounting surface machined off, and then they made a 1-inch spacer that adapted to the 560 flywheel to the 361 engine.
Now, when you say they made an adapter, that was a specialty. That wasn't just something on the market.
Yes, it was a specialty, so it was made at a machine shop.
Specifically made for this project.
So he had double the holes so he could bolt it to the old flywheel, and then have some through bolt holes to bolt it to the engine. And the spacing was correct because the starter would work then. So that was the other issue we were hoping wouldn't be an issue, and I had to have this flywheel, and this is the first one we did. I had to take it back twice to get it right. So, but eventually it did work, and then the second one we did, it was like, boom, he had all the specs at the machine shop, and he machined it out and made his spacer and had a chamfer on the end of it because it comes in contact with the rear main seal if you don't, and things like that. So that was one big hurdle that we had to go through. The other one was the steering, and then of course there's the tank. The fuel tank sits on top, and it's got a fire shield, I guess you could say. And the injector lines are really tall on this engine, so they would they're poking through the fire shield. That's all I got to say there. The other difficulties was, well, trying to adapt an oil bath to a tractor engine that never had an oil bath. So that's kind of a rigmarole too. I had nothing to do with that. That was my dad, but he made it work, and it does work. So you got basically a 90 horsepower tractor and a 56 horse chassis or 60 horse. So other than that, the steering is, you guys probably seen that on the other side. It's all remade and redone. The radiator's still original from 560. We had extra hood panels. This one you can't see it, only in certain light, but I cut off a section off an old junky hood and I welded it in here, and then I kind of polished it up and filled it in. But my dad did this. He had an extra panel. He brazed that with a brazing rod. This one I actually took to work and I welded it and then I sanded it down nice. And it was, in this light you can't tell, but it was painted. So it's actually another, I don't know, wait, 6 inches, 8 inches long. So this tractor was long to begin with, now it's even longer. But you can't tell when you're driving it. But yeah, and then put this fuel filter system on. This is from, I think this is from a 400 series engine, if you remember right. I put that on there so we have some type of fuel system and it'll take the same filters as the other tractors. So other than that, I mean, this was the biggest hurdle, was the flywheel issue. He had the frame rails here, and I think they're from a gas engine. I'm not positive on that, on an 806 gas. I'm unsure, but he had them around here. So that part was fine. But yeah, this flywheel issue took a lot of time to figure out in relationship with the starter and the engine to get it all to mesh. But once it was done, and we did the second one was a lot faster. But obviously he showed you the second one. That one's kind of junk right now.
So what'd you use for a backing plate? Is that the original backing plate?
Yeah. That's the 360.
That's a 360
361 backing plate.
Okay, so it's for the original to the engine.
Yes. Because the bell housing is basically identical on the tractors. It's just, there's some different features in there, but it worked as far as I remember. Yeah, that was part of the engine. So we didn't have to adapt 560 rear plate or nothing because it was part of the engine. So.
And I remember you telling a story, one of these were not locked up, but they were set up when there was mouse nest or whatever inside of one of the cylinders. Was that this one or the other one?
You know, I don't honestly remember which one it was. It may have been this one.
But anyway, tell the story on that.
I can't remember. So we put an engine, either this one or the other one. It might have been this one. So he got it home, we put it in, and it wouldn't crank, it would only crank over like, I don't know, 60 degrees each direction, and it just lock up. And I'm like, what the heck? So I tore off the intake manifold, and we looked inside here, you could see like corn shellings in the intake. I'm like, oh, that ain't good. There's no way they could get in there though. It's because the valves only open that far or whatever, you know, at most. Sure enough, we ended up tearing the head off, and there was a mouse nest on top of the piston. There was enough corn shellings and whatever in there, and they got in there because that valve was open, and apparently the intake was open at some point, and they made a nest. So we ended up putting a head gasket in it, of course, but I don't remember if it was this one or the other one, honestly. And the only way I would know is if, because it had the old-time bolts in it, the head bolts, where you have to use a 1/2-inch socket or the extension to take them out, and they're kind of pain. They're like a star drive. So that's all I remember. I don't know if it was this one or the other one, so can't remember. But this one was a pain in the butt when we did it, but the other one went relatively easy.
And conveniently enough, the other ones went through 2 engines.
Yeah, and we've already stole the frame rails off of that one for the pulling tractors.
Yeah. If you guys didn't see the last video, go look at the last video. You'll know what we're talking about the second tractor. So, but this is, you guys made 2 of these tractors, and this one, they are both a success, so to say. It's just the other one had bad engines. Yeah. The engines never got any work done to them.
He bought them, we stuck them in. we didn't know the history of them very much, but this one's tired, but it runs. And the muffler, this is the muffler I had on my 806, which is carbon plug, so I mean, that probably doesn't help it. So,
overall,
for a nice tractor.
It makes a very nice chore tractor. And I don't know, we just seem to have a sweet spot for these 560s, so they stick around here. You're not going to find another one like this.
No.
So that's just a quick little history on what was done to make this tractor what it is today. So that's all we got for today. Thanks for the story, Dad.
Yep.